Well, welcome back to our Links family and friends. We're in a second Friday on a series on suffering. And I have once again my guest, my old friend Joey Denton, where last week we talked just a little bit about a terrible accident that Joey had a couple of years back and some of the struggles he went through. So, Joey, welcome back.
Thank you, Dennis. Good to be here again.
All right, good to see you. Well, listen, just recap for us briefly the tragedy, and then as quickly as possible, get to those things that you learned and some of those things that sustained you during some of the darkest hours of your life.
Yeah, so I had a pretty significant car accident in February of 21 that led to head trauma, brain injury, optical damage, hearing issues. Had to step down from the pastorate because I could no longer lead the church well. And so for 2 years, I was in and out of therapy, doctors, recovery. And that obviously was a really, really hard and low, difficult season. But as we mentioned last week, as believers in Jesus, we have hope even in the midst of suffering. And so for me, I had to turn to the one who I knew was true. I had to depend on his truth. I had to know and understand that even in this season where I could not put my hands around it. I could not grasp why we were walking through this. Why, for example, I don't have any memory of 2021, why we were walking through that. But the Lord, in His grace, reminded me of who He is, the truth of who He is. I rested on the foundation of knowing that God loves me, He watches over me, He is sovereign, He providentially cares for me, and He's working all this out for good. So ultimately, I had to go to what I knew was true. And so I went back to the scriptures and reminded my soul, my weary, struggling soul, of what the Bible teaches for us, me specifically, as we walk through days of suffering.
Yeah, I was just reminded when you were talking and reminding me of the journey that you've been on. Is it Psalm 42 and Psalm 43 where David cries out in a repeated refrain where he's talking to his own soul? Why are you in despair, oh my soul? And he would just keep coming back to God, God's character, the promises of God, stirring his own soul to trust and to persevere. And I watched you and Jamie go through that. I now rejoice with you. Although you're not 100%, you're probably in the low 90% of what you once were. And I'm believing for total recovery and trusting you in that process. So, how do you feel today?
Feel good today. Physically, I'm well. I still have cognitive issues that I deal with on a daily basis, and struggles that are a result of the accident. But in the midst of all of that, I continue to tell myself today, very much the way I did during my recovery, that God has a purpose in all this. Psalm 57, that He's working a purpose for me. He's fulfilling His purpose for me. Philippians 2:13, he works in me both to will and to work for His good pleasure. I've got to hold on to those truths, especially not knowing the reasoning and not knowing, uh, is this the new normal, or is there something ahead? I just have to rest in knowing that He knows,
Yeah.
that I believe in His sovereignty and I believe in His providence. And I've gotten to a point where I'm okay with where I'm at now because one, He allowed me to survive the accident. Two, He's allowed me to return to vocational ministry and getting to serve the Carolinas with Links, which is an incredible joy. But God, in all of this, reminded me and assured me that He was with me. Just when Joseph went through all that suffering in the book of Genesis, and none of which he deserved, It continuously said, Genesis 39, the Lord was with Joseph. The Lord was with them. The Lord was with him. And I tell myself daily, Joey, the Lord is with you. He's with you.
That's good stuff, brother. And to our Links family, Joey and I want to say to all of you, men and women, if you're in a season of suffering, the Lord is with you. You can claim that. You can cling to that. You can trust that. Joey, thanks for being with us again. Thanks for sharing just a little slice of your story. And I do rejoice with you and Jamie and the boys and your friends and your extended family that the Lord's really restored you to health and he's using you mightily with Links. So to our Links family and friends, God bless. We'll see you again next Friday.